are here with my good friend, Dr. Cynthia James. We're so happy to have you here with us. This is your first time here on Transitions. And what we want to do first is just kind of hear a little bit about you growing up and that process of meeting your husband, and then you tell me the rest from that point.
Oh, that's a long story after all these years. But thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
Thank you.
I've been looking forward to this. We actually met, let me back up since you said you growing up. I was born in Birmingham, Alabama.
Okay.
My father's family, in that day, we wouldn't have called it activists, but that's what we call it now. They protested employee rights at a pipe factory. And after he and his brothers, and after that, we had to leave town rather quickly.
Wow.
There was some cross burning in the yard and some other threats. And family doesn't talk about it a lot, but I understand he was accosted on the road and beat in the head with the pipe. I was very small. So at age 4, almost 5, we moved to Pennsylvania. We had family there.
Okay.
And so I grew up in the north. My parents did maintenance work in a very wealthy Jewish community, which was a wonderful advantage in terms of access to some good public schools. It also meant some isolation, but we had a church that provided kind of filled the cultural gap. That was another community. So I grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania after we moved there, and I met my husband at 15. It was an experimental program. Now it's very common to have high school students on college campuses. This was before that day.
Okay.
And there were 2 programs that were experimenting nationally with what would it be like to bring high schoolers between 10th and 11th grade and have them spend time with you on a campus.
Okay.
So the first year we stayed 2 weeks on a campus. The next summer we stayed 6 weeks.
Okay.
And on a retreat at a YM or YWCA mountain snow retreat, we were bit by some kind of bug. And
some kind of bug.
Yeah, some kind of teenage infatuation. And that turned out it'll be 46 years this summer.
Wow.
So it's been scandalous, and by that I mean wonderful. not the TV scandal. But it's been exciting.
That's wonderful. And so when you all got married, you were in college?
We were in college. I was permitted to go I was at school in Carnegie Mellon. It's now called, it was called CIT then, Carnegie Institute of Technology. It's now called Carnegie Mellon University in Pittsburgh. And he was at Wesleyan University in Connecticut.
Okay.
And my freshman year, I was allowed to go to homecoming. Well, there were a lot of obstacles to young people getting together in those days. So the dean had to write to my parents and assure them I could stay at the dean's house and no place else, that I'd have a curfew and they'd oversee me and all that. So I got to go to homecoming and made a couple trips, maybe one in the spring as freshman year. By that time, we had been liking each other, because that's all we could say was like, since we were 16. And our dating was, he came to my church, and that was about it. And we went to a few other civic events. But once in college, we were allowed to date. So the second year, I was at homecoming again, and we decided, okay, this is like been 5 or 6 years, and we think we're pretty mature. So he came home with me and asked my parents if we could get married. And I'll never forget my mother going, it was like inhaling, rapid, exhale. So we were supposed to be engaged. We said we want to get married at the end of school. So a 2-year engagement.
Okay.
So in about a few months, we were able to talk them into an 8 or 9 month engagement.
Okay.
So we got married the summer before our junior year.
Wow.
And I moved to his school in Connecticut, and that was also exciting. They had been all males, and so I was among the first 5 females they ever had.
Oh, wow.
And their first married couple, so that was great. I don't know how much detail you want.
No, well, that's good.
Well,
like you said, then you got married. And so
we got married. I had pretty much taken an overload in units.
Okay.
So by my junior year, I had enough to graduate. And so these were decisions that I have mixed feelings about. Kind of like a Rorschach test. You look at it one way and it looks like a vase. You look at it another way, it looks like a face. There were advantages. If there's such a thing as overmotivated, overcommitted, over high achievers, I paid physical consequences for that. But we decided, well, we want to go to grad school, so we need to have a child between undergraduate and grad school.
Wow.
So the process was quite enjoyable. But the consequences of starting grad school with a 4-week-old baby was a real challenge.
The process.
Yes.
And the consequences.
Yes, indeed. So the child was delightful.
Yes.
But the havoc it wreaked in terms of being a young person, delighted to be married. So I'm awfully glad we started our family early. I'm good at work, glad it worked out the way it did. But health-wise, that was quite a toll on me, starting graduate school with a 4-year-old who had severe asthma. So
those were challenges that...
Yeah, the Lord was faithful, and it's just, looking back on it, I think, why was I in such a hurry? What was I rushing for? But it all did line up very well. So.
And so what happened with your life right after that?
Okay.
Like one school?
Well, we always did everything too much.
Okay.
So a 4-year graduate program, we finished the academic work in 2 years.
Okay.
With this little baby.
Wow.
And so we were able to move back near family to do our dissertation writing.
Okay.
So that helped. It was good to get closer to family, to have a support system. But I keep wondering, what was the rush? But I think at that point, we were so concerned about the lives that had been lost, the price that had been paid, the doors that had been opened for our community to have education.
Okay.
And so we were gung-ho about faith and education. The two were wed.
And what were these years, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I don't mind. We got out of high school in '67.
Okay.
So in 2 years, '69, we had finished the master's and had the academic work for the doctorate and went back. We were at Rutgers at that point. We were in graduate school there.
Okay.
And went back to Pennsylvania where our families were to help us with this child.
Wow.
So I went back and did the dissertation writing, took a job as a university professor, finished the dissertation, and had another child. I was on a fast track. I'm not sure what that fast track, but I was on a fast track.
Yeah.
And I had this sense of it all has to work, have to do it all right now. That wasn't wisdom.
Now let me ask you this. Had you accepted Christ?
At the age of 9, the way a 9-year-old accepts Christ.
Okay.
So I think the way we frame our view of the Lord matures with us as we mature. So at 9, I had a serious conversion, and I remember the message very well. At 18, my freshman year in college, it was the end of the first semester, and I was crying about my first set of exams in college. I mean, I was distraught. Now I can think of a whole lot more things to be upset about than your first set of exams.
Yeah.
But at that point, that was a crisis, and to me, that was mammoth. And I remember it was December 3rd, and we were going to go into exams the next week, and I fell beside my bed in my dorm, and I cried out to God. It was as sincere as it could be at 18. And I said, Lord, I love you. I'm trying to live for you, and there has to be a better way. I should not be, my grades were great, but I was fearful. And I asked the Lord, if you will help me not be fearful about academics, if you'll help me to be, I want to study, I want to prepare, but this does not match my salvation. I don't know the words I used at 18, but basically it felt joyless. And I remember crying and saying, okay, no more studying. And I got up and I went to church instead of my church, which was in the city, with another student, went to their church. And it was that point, and I don't know if you meant for me to go in this direction.
No, go ahead, tell it all.
For me, I found another depth, found the joy that went with my salvation. I had the belief and the faith, but I found a way that I still struggled to articulate. Some would call it a fullness of the Spirit, but whatever it was a new saturation. And I remember the minister speaking, and I got up to go to the altar, but I never made it to the altar. I remember stopping midway the aisle. My mother met me at that church because she didn't know where I was going, and she was going to look out for her baby. And I stopped in the aisle and just began with uplifted hands praising the Lord. And in my way of saying it, I just was brought to a new level of renewal. I'll never forget it. And a new place of praise, a new encounter, and somehow got a new perception of how much Christ loved me, and I didn't have to be that fearful.
Wow.
But I had made a vow, which was a foolish vow, because I said, at 18, give some latitude, my prayer was, if you help me get through school, and I'm not fearful, and I can not have this, feeling of trepidation.
Right.
I'll do whatever you ask, Lord. I'll just whatever you say. I'm just open to it. Now that's not anything I recommend. But that was the level.
Yeah, of
as a
sincerity that you
teenager
had.
that I would pray.
Yeah.
And fortunately, it was not like Jephthah in the Bible, but it had its consequences later on. Yeah.
And the thing about that is everybody has their different place of brokenness. And it sounds like for me, yours was you were so concerned about school and how well you would do that was a life-changing point where somebody else may say, Father, if you get me through this last sin, if you take me through this last thing, I'll do right. If you get me. So to hear your journey and to hear yours was, Father, in this place right here, dealing with school and dealing with what I'm dealing, at college, I will make this commitment to you. It's amazing to me to hear.
I think you articulated very well. And it just sounds so light and fluff compared to real
That's
life
why I'm saying
issues.
it's different
It got
with
a lot
everybody.
deeper as the years went on. But at that point, I wasn't paying bills.
Right.
But the weight of community and responsibility and family and the sacrifice of my family to send me to school.
That was big.
It was big at 18. And true to the request, the Lord, I studied hard. I never slacked there, but made it fairly easy. I mean, I still get hyper about little things, but nothing like that first fear. I mean, I was weeping over this exam, and I was doing so well, and the teacher said, "What is the problem?" But fear is fear.
That's right.
And fear is torment, and it doesn't matter what it comes from.
Wow.
It is not of God. And so I knew there was something incompatible about what I was experiencing, although I didn't know the theology and all that behind it. Went through school, as I said, and I was teaching at the university, had been teaching a number of years, maybe 4 or 5 years, 2 beautiful children, husband's career was coming along, things were great. And I was teaching at the university in daytime and a community college at night, and we were considering leaving Pennsylvania and moving because my husband was a planner at that point. Wasn't a lot of urban development going on, so we were either going to go to California or Atlanta. And the job offer came in California, so he went 6 months ahead of us. And I stayed back to get the house sold and all that. And I got up one morning or one night, and I've been fasting and seeking the Lord. I was, in those days, I still pray for that. It's confession time. Pray for a restoration to that kind of constancy in prayer and fasting. So do it while you're young, just in case. But seeking the Lord, again, unwisely, as unwise as that prayer might have been. We can overdo anything. I'm an overdoer. And I was praying and seeking the Lord continuously, not fasting in wisdom.
Right.
And got up one night. We were staying at my mother's because the house was about to be sold. And winter time, 2 little babies, well, a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, and a 15-month-old. And I should go back and say the child came after we had been married 2 years. I kind of
right,
just in case anybody's counting them, add that up. But he was born in 71. Well, I was pregnant while I graduated, but I had been married a while.
Okay.
Just in case, but got up and had a mild stroke in my late 20s.
Wow.
Here I had the PhD, had the master's degree, science fellowships, offers to travel and do research. My husband had dropped out of law school because we had 2 kids and financially we needed to do that. He was 2.5 years through law school, had his master's degree, almost a JD degree, good job, and I was paralyzed on one side of my body.
Wow.
And I don't want to mess up my verbs after I said I study so, but I laid anyway. I was in the hospital, and I cried out to God again. What am I not doing? What is the message? I'm living for you. I'm trying. I'm seeking to serve you.
Wow.
I'm committed. I'm doing church work, community work. What more do you want? And what came back to my mind was that 18-year-old's prayer. I had forgotten about it. You said, if I would do this, that whatever I asked of you. And I said yes. I didn't know what the Lord was asking, but I
Right.
said yes, whatever it is, big yes, yes, get me up out of here. And so I had done enough teaching, and we had research time. So I was still in the payroll at the university, but we moved to California. The doctor said, you will not be able to drive. You cannot go around crowds or large groups of people. I had a memory that was almost like photogenic. It wasn't photogenic, but I could study and recite almost the whole chapter,
Wow.
close to verbatim, paraphrased. I couldn't do my lectures. If you asked my name, I couldn't remember my zip code. I couldn't handle complex thoughts.
Wow.
Used to standing in huge lecture halls.
Mm.
And took me about a year and a half. It was considered a petite mal seizure, not a major stroke. But as far as I was concerned, it was major.
Of course.
Because my thought process was so slow and slow delayed. So my husband nursed me,
Wow.
and the 2 kids in California. And all I could do was push the stroller. And I couldn't focus, couldn't read, couldn't do my research. And slowly I healed, came back together. And during that time, am I taking too long?
No, go right ahead. I'm
I was
enjoying it.
in California. I was on a BART ride, which is the Bay Area Rapid Transit. And this was the time I realized that I had begun, I'd sit down, I couldn't study much. My regular, I was a psychologist. But I'd just write. I mean, 30 pages would pour out of me, 50 pages, 40 pages. I wouldn't study. I'd just have to sit down, and it would come nonstop.
Right.
And this one particular time, I was on the transit system, and I was just writing furiously, and it hit me. These are sermons, and that scared me, because I'm like, is this what you're talking about, God? That was never part of the preamble. It was not part of, and it is not in the epilogue. You allowed me to go to school and have invested heavily in this career.
Yeah.
Why am I writing sermons? And so I kind of hit that for a while.
Wow.
Because I didn't know what that meant. And I began working again, and I told my husband, expecting him to say, what? And he grew up a good, I say good, CME, very open, inclusive pulpit there, and he was accustomed to women in ministry, so not a problem. But I was fearful of telling my parents, and they said, well, whatever.
Right.
That's what you do all the time anyway. But I was in, I don't know if I should be specific, but one of those national missionary organizations, National Missionary Baptist Church, I'll just say, at the time where women were not permitted to be formally in ministry, and I didn't want to be in ministry anyway.
Right.
But over a course of time, a very enlightened pastor who said, well, regardless of custom, I believe he loved the Lord. And I understood later that he took quite a slap for that.
Wow.
But anyway, that led to a lot of things, and later on I was teaching at the university, and people would come with spiritual questions. I couldn't answer them on site because we weren't allowed.
Okay.
And so we began inviting students to our home on Friday night to pray and to read the Word, and we'd send them to church.
Okay.
We'd say, okay, you need to find a good church.
Right.
But there was always a core group that wouldn't go. So then I consulted with my pastor, and he said, this group is following you as a shepherd, which was very frightening. And so we had an 8 o'clock service, then we'd go to our church for those that would not go anyplace else.
Oh, wow.
Because we began to be the ones which provided spiritual nourishment. So my husband and I did that jointly. And I can pause at any point because the story goes on. So,
well, even with that, with the transitions that you had gone through, when you were told about, well, when the stroke actually happened, what did you go through emotionally? What was that like for you? I know you moved past it, but at that moment when those things started happening, how did you start to feel? Were you like, okay, what's going on? How long is this going to last? What process was that?
absolutely. Both medically, I was full of questions, and because I was a young person, grew up in church, and I read the Word and sought the Lord, my prayers were frantic. They were chaotic. They were not expressions of faith. It was inquiring of God. I don't understand. I have 2 babies. Are you taking me out? Why would I spend all these years? Why would you let me get past the PhD and then make it so I can't teach anymore? I'm about to become an associate professor soon. What's going on? And there were no answers. It was in the silence, and it was over time. But as I calmed down, and Some of the strength came back on my left side.
Yeah.
To this day, I can still remember a good bit of memorization, but I've never been back to where I was, which is understandable.
Right.
And as you're older, you're aware of it more. But I'm just grateful now that for the restoration that did come over the years. And I was teaching again in another university and doing the ministry, trying not to overdo because I tend to overdo. It was a slow process. The Lord, in His graciousness, weaned me little by little by little.
And when you say the word overdue, tell me about overdue.
I think it's possibly overcommitted. And I think as women, this is my generalization, we're prone to that. I think we can overlove, we can over-caregive, we can overwork, we can overserve, because the tendency, I don't want to use that codependent, but it's definitely in the family there. The tendency to want to. So I tended to overstudy. I still am at risk for that.
Wow.
And because it sounds socially acceptable, it's smart to be studious, it feeds into a disability, an intellectual disability.
Wow.
So I have to confront me and say that's enough, close the book, walk away, because that's my fun, that's my work, that's my retreat, that's my healing. It's just in the
And what finally brought you to that place? What made you stop and say, I'm overdoing?
Well, I think it's a bit like any addiction.
Okay.
I don't know if you ever totally recover.
Okay.
I didn't intend to say all this on camera, but I don't mind at all being that transparent. By this point, I was pastoring, I was an evangelist, I was a mother, I was a professor, I held a public position and a bunch of other stuff. But watching it, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of that, and a wonderful husband. He'd have to be, right? With all this. And I was on a plane, well, two things. I was going to speak somewhere, and I was on the road. I put my kids to bed, what do you call them, I forget what you call the midnight flights, the overnight.
A red eye.
Red eyes. They don't do as many of those now.
Right.
Everybody go to bed. I'd red eye into town.
Oh, wow.
Do what I was going to do and red eye back.
Wow.
Because I didn't want to stay away from home much or my children. And I woke up in a Ritz-Carlton in Cleveland, Ohio. And I woke up and I was traveling so much, I didn't know what city I was in. I didn't know what hotel I was in until I looked over the telephone.
Wow.
I called downstairs to verify what city I was in, and then I said, God, I don't even know who I'm here to speak for. I'm tired.
Wow.
And that started to say, something's wrong. I mean, that's as good as being drunk.
Yeah.
When you're doing the Lord's work and you're going. And that compulsiveness and that drivenness, I had to submit to the Lord. The second thing was I was on the plane, and I found a scripture that has become just inscripted for me. It is in Song of Solomon, and it says, my mother's sons, so that's family, were angry at me. And I take angry very broadly. I don't think it's like angry. They made me keeper of the vineyard. That looks like it gave me a lot of responsibility. But it ends by saying, my own vineyard have I not kept. One translation says, my own vineyard I have neglected.
Wow.
And so that started me on a course to say, what does balance look like in my life?
Wow.
Now, maybe it's not the same as someone else's. It may still look out of balance for them. But what does balance look like for me?
Yeah.
And it's the way, not through psychology, but through the theology, God knew I would hear. Because as a psychologist, I should have known. But I heard through the scripture.
Wow. That
you have a vineyard. Not the engagements, not the things people gave you to do, not the great doors that open, but you have a seed, a purpose, and a destiny. Make sure you don't neglect that.
Wow.
And ultimately, that's to live for the Lord.
Ooh, that's blessing me right now.
It's still my favorite scripture.
Now, your husband accepting the fact that you were pastoring, was that a transition at all?
We have all kind of transitions. Yes. And because because I was fearful of the stigma, I tried to say to him, you're called a pastor. You're a pastor. I'll just help you. Because I didn't want to deal with it, the rejection. And he's very strong, very secure in his field. And he'd say, be who God called you and let me be who He called me to be. Now, he was in ministry. He has a lecturing style. He does not have what I call a counseling pastoral style. We co-pastored for a while, but his career became his predominant thing, and continues to be. He's more into development, and he became a city manager and worked in that arena more so.
Wow.
He was the person for me, and I'm so grateful.
Yes, and I'm loving the fact that you were able to do all of that together. You all met at a young age.
Yeah.
You went to college together.
But we grew up together.
Yeah.
Which meant we had to keep getting to know who we were.
Yeah.
So I don't regret that. We were on a fast track, and it's been wonderful.
Yeah.
But that was risky, looking back at it. But my prayer as a young person was, I didn't want to sample or be sampled.
Well,
I'm not saying there's anything wrong, but for me,
can you say that one more
I didn't
time?
want to sample, and I didn't want to be sampled. So as a
Ooh.
junior high student, I was always kind of an old soul. I asked the Lord, whoever you have, if you have someone for my life, let me meet them early, and that will be it.
Wow. That's so beautiful. I mean, just even hearing
Could have turned
the
out
journey.
differently.
It could
so
have.
I'm just it's grace and mercy. It's not necessarily wisdom. It's just that's what my path was.
But I think too, because of the heart, you know, in that God had, not that he had to honor it, but there was some purity in that request also, because what you were saying was, I want to stay in this state that I'm in. I don't want to be tainted, or I don't want my heart to.
I loved God.
Yeah.
As a teenager, I hid my Bible under my pillow in the blankets. When the mother set lights out, I'd read through all the Psalms and all the Proverbs.
Wow.
I did my wrong stuff. Don't think I didn't.
Yeah.
But I loved the Lord, and I didn't have a good understanding. So there's foolishness and wisdom mixed in there. But I wanted to be set aside for God.
Set
and He's been
aside.
so gracious to me.
To God
So
be the
gracious.
glory. Well, we have enjoyed you, Dr. Cynthia James, here at Transitions. You've been nothing but a blessing, and just hearing that, what you've said to me, you have inspired me, you have encouraged me, and you have caused me to go back and read.
You're already an inspiration for thousands.
Well,
you know that,
thank
don't
you. I mean, hearing it from you, that blesses me, but
That's true.
I'm just in awe just to have you here, and I'm really grateful, and I want you to know that you have just blessed us today.
Thank you.
So, thank you for being here on Transitions. We
Been a
appreciate
joy.
it.